Hello, my name is Renad.
And my name is Nazifa.
Welcome to Global Girl Leading 2024. On Friday, 11th of September, people from around the world will come together to celebrate International Day of the Girl. On the same day, the Mulberry Schools Trust Global Girl Leading Conference will take place, and it is being streamed live from the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre in London, opposite the Houses of Parliament.
Over the next 90 minutes, we are going to share with you some highlights from previous Global Girl Leading events and tell you more about the Global Girl Leading project and share a sneak preview of this year's conference.
So let's get started. At our 2023 conference, we were honoured to be joined by Dorothy Byrne. Dorothy was editor-at-large and previously head of news and current affairs at Channel 4 television. Her programmes have won numerous Royal Television Society, BAFTA and Emmy Awards. She was elected a Fellow of the Royal Television Society for her outstanding contribution to television. Dorothy is currently president of Murray Edwards College, University of Cambridge.
We join Dorothy Byrne as she presents her keynote address.
Thank you very much indeed for those kind words. And it's very exciting and a great honour to be invited to give the keynote speech at such a wonderful event. So you would look at me, and you just heard about me, and you would think, wow, she's a success. But actually, for quite a while, I was a failure. And what I want to explain to you today is it's because of my failures that I'm a success. And I want to start with a really mortifying story. When one day when I was about 25, I was walking down the street with my mother, and she met a friend. And the friend said to her, "Oh, Agnes, how are the girls?" And my mother said, "Well, Catherine's a doctor, married to a doctor." Oh, you know, the tops, isn't it? Mary is married to a university lecturer, not so highly paid, but prestigious. And Margaret is married to the son of the deputy head of the Australian Foreign Service. Wow, I mean, that's high society, isn't it? And then I waited. I mean, what about me? And the woman said, "That sounds wonderful," and we moved on. And the reason my mother didn't say anything about me is that she was so ashamed of me. At that time, although I had done very well at school and university, I was working in a job that paid £2,000 a year. I was a local reporter in Walthamstow, and I lived in a horrible little room for £5 a week, because that's all I could afford, in the house as the lodger of a family of racists. And my mother was so embarrassed about this that was why she didn't tell the woman. And it's because I went through that I came out the other side to be the success I am now. And after university, I decided I didn't really know what to do. And I went to, I knew that I cared about helping other people, and I was interested in Africa. So I went to Nigeria to be a volunteer teacher. And that is where I had a terrible accident, and I still don't walk very well as a result. And I couldn't work for a year, and because I couldn't walk. And then nobody would give me a job because I was too old for any training scheme. And I would say that I had to crawl to get a job, but I couldn't even crawl because my leg doesn't bend. And but I knew that I cared, and I knew that what I wanted to do was some sort of job involved with doing things for other people. And in that time that I couldn't walk at all, I was in hospital, and I saw terrible treatment of people with disabilities. And in particular, I remember that anybody who had any sort of learning difficulty, who was also physically ill, got treated particularly badly. And I lived as a victim, and I saw what that was like. And I decided, I know what I'm going to do. I hadn't known before that what I was going to do. I thought, I'm going to be a journalist, and I'm going to expose the bad things that happen to other people. And I have realized that the fact that I couldn't get onto some high-flying training scheme was really good, because I lived in Walthamstow earning less than most of the people that I was writing stories about, and living the lives that they lived. And I gained through that insights and experiences that I would never have got in some high-flying scheme. And I got ideas then of what sort of stories I wanted to expose. And it's because I had all the difficulties that I became such a passionate and enthusiastic journalist. So I went from working on the Walthamstow Guardian, and I rose higher, and I became, as you heard, the head of news and current affairs in the end at Channel 4. And in that time, a key reason for my success was that I had ideas for making films that other people didn't have, because I used my experiences. I have made so many exposés about what happens to people in the health service, and I've made so many exposés about what happened to women. And my view is, whatever bad thing happens to me in my life, I will use that. I will use that to make films exposing those sorts of things. Throughout my time in TV, I suffered and saw other women suffer misogyny, discrimination, harassment, and sometimes assault. So I exposed it. And one of the things that I'm most well known for in the television industry is that I stood up at the Edinburgh Television Festival and I called out the men in our industry. And that actually was one of the things that made my name. And it was then that Cambridge University came knocking on my door and said, would you like to apply to be the president of a women's college at Cambridge University? I didn't go to Cambridge University. And that all came about because I made this very high-profile speech. And I made the high-profile speech because of all the bad things that happened to me. So all those horrible men who made my life hell sometimes, thanks very much, because I'm the president of a Cambridge college and you're not. Now, some people will say to you that we don't need women's institutions and organizations anymore, and I completely and utterly disagree. People often say that now the same percentage of women go to university as men. Well, there have always been more women in the world than men, and if equal numbers was the solution, there would be no discrimination against women, would there? But what happens is that women get into university, but when they get into university, they also have to campaign there for their rights and for equality. And I accepted the role at Murray Edwards College at Cambridge because I could see how we could use our college to champion women and we could use the power that we have as women together to help empower other people. And that is my message to you, that whatever has happened to you that isn't a great thing in your life, that is your special power. You can use that to make sure that you can succeed. I would say always that you should look inside yourselves and think, what is it about me that makes me special and different? And what do I really, really want to do? And I would say that a key reason that I've succeeded is that I didn't do something or choose a job or choose anything just so that it would look good, just so that my mother would be proud of me when we walked down the street. I chose the different paths I took because I really believed in those things, and I felt really passionate and really enthusiastic. And when I became head of news and current affairs, oh my goodness me, then did my mother want to talk about me. And I thought, now I exist. Thank you very much indeed. I wasn't there before. But what is interesting is all my sisters did well, but I think I did really well because of the bad things that happened to me and because I made decisions of what I wanted to do based on what I truly believed in. And that would be my simple message to you today. I know teachers are great. I know your parents, your carers, your families are wonderful, and they will all tell you what they think you should do. But really try to look inside yourself and think, what do I want to do? What really makes me excited? Because if something makes you really excited, you will be far more likely to succeed in it. I succeeded in making programs which won awards, not because I set out to make programs which won awards, but because I really, really cared about the subjects, whether they be war crimes or abuse of women or women's experiences in pregnancy. I did every subject that I chose for a film. I chose it because that topic mattered to me. And by the way, if you want to be a journalist, you've all got a great story inside you. Everybody has got a wonderful story that they know that nobody else knows. So I would say, if any of you here listening do want to be journalists, just think, what do I know about that nobody else knows about? And then write about it. Write about it in your school magazine if you have one. Contact your local media and tell them the story, and just make a beginning of doing it. And even if you don't end up being a journalist, if you, as I would say, commit acts of journalism, I think that you will find it a really interesting and exciting thing to do. Anyway, thank you very much. I think you've heard enough from me now, and I look forward to the panel. Thank you.
Dorothy is truly an inspirational woman and has never let anything stop her from achieving her ambitions. Dorothy will be joining us at this year's conference, taking part in a panel discussion exploring inspirational women's leadership at national level.
In 2015, the then First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, visited Mulberry School for Girls to launch her new campaign, Let Girls Learn. Following her visit, a student-led project called Girl Leading emerged, which brought together 60 girls from 10 schools across the UK for a leadership camp. Subsequently, the project has grown, evolved, and has become global.
At its core, Global Girl Leading is a leadership development program by Girls for Girls. It is dedicated to promoting equality for girls through rich educational opportunities that connect girls across the world, bringing them together as a sisterhood, advocating for each other.
We would like to share with you an extract from Mrs. Obama's speech, which inspired this project. You will hear her speak about her experience growing up in Chicago and why it is fundamental to ensure every girl has access to education.
Now, I imagine that some of you might be wondering, well, why would the First Lady of the United States come here to Tower Hamlets? Why would she choose this community and this school when she could be anywhere in the city or in this entire country? And the answer is simple. I'm here because of you. I'm here because girls like you inspire me and impress me every single day. I am so proud of your passion, your diligence, as Dr. Ogden said, your grit, your determination, and I am beyond thrilled that you are working so hard to complete your education. It is so important. And I'm here because when I look out at all of these young women, I see myself. I may come from a country that's an ocean away, but I'm a bit older than you all. Yeah, I am. I know I don't look it, but I'm just a little older. But in so many ways, your story is my story. For those of you who may not know much about my background, I grew up in a working class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, a neighborhood a lot like this one, where people work hard to make ends meet, but where families are tight-knit with strong values. My dad worked as a pump operator at the city water plant, and my mom stayed home to take care of me and my big brother, Craig. We lived in a really small apartment. And my brother and I shared a bedroom that was divided in half by a wooden partition, giving us each our own little tiny rooms that fit just a twin bed and a small desk. So we didn't have much space, but we had a whole lot of love. And perhaps like a lot of you, we grew up surrounded by our extended family. I had grandparents, aunts, and uncles and cousins living just blocks away from my family's apartment. And my great aunt and uncle actually lived one floor below in the same apartment house. So our home was often busy with family coming and going. And because our apartment was so small, there wasn't much privacy. I can remember how hard it was to concentrate on my homework because someone was always talking or watching TV right next to you. I often woke up at 4 in the morning when the house was finally quiet, just so that I could concentrate and finish my schoolwork. I remember just dreaming of having a space of my own, away from all the family obligations that were always popping up. As my great aunt and uncle grew older, my parents took charge of caring for them. My dad would help my uncle shave and get dressed each morning, and my mom would dash downstairs in the middle of the night to make sure that my aunt was okay. So we constantly felt the struggle to balance our family responsibilities and the schoolwork, the activities, and the goals that we had for ourselves. And through it all, my parents fully expected us to do both, to achieve our dreams and be there for our family. And they also knew that a good education was the ultimate key to our success. My parents told me every day I could do anything. I could grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, whatever, but only if I worked as hard as I could to succeed in school. I imagine that many of you have parents who give you the exact same advice. And like you, I didn't want to let my parents down. So I worked hard in school. I read everything I could get my hands on. I did my absolute very best on every single assignment. I did everything in my power to be a good student. I dreamed of one day going to one of the best universities in America. But despite my efforts, there were still people in my life who told me that I was setting my sights too high, that a girl like me couldn't get into an elite university. It was like these folks were trying to put me in a little box, a box that fit their constrained expectations of me. And after a while, I started to wonder, well, maybe I was dreaming too big. What if these folks were right? See, back then, I didn't know what my future held. I didn't know that I'd be accepted to a top university. I didn't know that I'd go on to get a law degree and become an NGO director and a hospital executive and eventually First Lady of the United States. Those kinds of achievements seemed totally out of reach when I was your age. I was just a working class kid from a good community with limited resources. Neither of my parents and hardly anyone in my neighborhood went to university. And I wasn't even sure my family could afford the tuition. I didn't have anyone to help me study for entrance exams. And the fact that I was a girl and that I was Black, well, that certainly didn't help things either. When I was growing up, there were very few Black women at high levels in business or politics or science on TV. So I didn't have many professional role models to look up to. And I have a feeling that my experience might feel similar or familiar to some of you. Maybe you look at the leaders in your businesses and laboratories and government and wonder whether there's a place for someone like you. Maybe you've heard about the kinds of tutors and prep courses and other advantages that wealthier students can afford, and you wonder how you ever will compete. Maybe you feel like no one's paying attention to you, like you're lost in the shuffle at home or in this huge city, and you wonder whether it's worth it to even aspire to be something great. And maybe you read the news and hear what folks are saying about your religion, and you wonder if people will ever see beyond your headscarf to who you really are, instead of being blinded by the fears and misperceptions in their own minds. And I know how painful and how frustrating all of that can be. I know how angry and exhausted it can make you feel. But here's the thing. With an education from this amazing school, you all have everything you need to rise above all of the noise and fulfill every last one of your dreams. And it is so important that you do that, not just for yourselves, but for all of us. Because you all have a unique perspective. You have a unique voice to add to the conversation. You know what it's like when a family struggles to make ends meet. You know what it's like to be overlooked and underestimated because of who you are or what you believe in or where you come from. And the world needs more girls like you growing up to lead our parliaments and our boardrooms and our courtrooms and our universities. We need you. We need people like you tackling the pressing problems we face: climate change and poverty, violent extremism, disease. And while all of that might sound a little daunting, I just want you to remember that you don't have to do this alone. There are millions of people like me and my husband, Dr. Ogden, and so many leaders here in the United Kingdom and all around the world who are standing with you. We are doing everything we can to break down the barriers that stand in your way. We want to make sure that every door is open to girls like you, and not just here in England, and not just in America, but in every corner of the globe. And that starts with making sure that every girl on this planet has the kinds of opportunities you all have to get the education and to succeed. As you've heard, right now there are more than 62 million girls around the world who are not in school. Girls whose families don't think they're worthy of an education or they can't afford it. Girls who live too far away from the nearest school and have no transportation. Girls like Malala Yousafzai, who are assaulted, kidnapped, or killed just for trying to learn. And this isn't just a devastating loss for these girls. It's a devastating loss for all of us who are missing out on their promise. One of these girls could have the potential to cure cancer or start a business that transforms an industry or become the next president or prime minister who inspires her country. But if she never sets foot in a classroom, chances are she will never discover or fulfill that potential.
We are so grateful to Mrs. Obama for visiting Mulberry to launch Let Girls Learn. Since leaving office, the Obamas have set up the Obama Foundation. One of the foundation projects is Girls' Opportunity Alliance, which seeks to empower and educate adolescent girls around the world, allowing them to achieve their full potential and transform their families, communities, and countries. Tina Chen, Executive Vice President at the Obama Foundation, will be giving a keynote at this year's conference and joining a panel exploring inspirational women's leadership at international level.
The reason why all this work is necessary is that around the world, many girls are still unable to access a quality education. Without education, they are unable to fulfill their full potential. The following film using UNICEF footage explores the barriers girls face to attending school and what the benefits are to society when all girls are educated.
از درس خواندن، تعلیم.
Потом началась война, и мы были постоянно в подвале.
در خانه مصروفیت عمومی است که کت مادرم کمک میکنم در کالاشویی ظرفا را میشویم.
کاو تو گرفته رو کاو.
هر روزی که بابای من میگیره ما تمرین میکنم و خیلی مشکلات برمیخورم و اون مشکلات است که فقط استادم میتونه به من حلش کنه.
Fatonare che da gente sta fianco, fatonga da sta fianco e sairan bei papa ci na vita to nande yanarako.
كان الراسي تلعب سوكو يجي كسي حسويلك أو قرصي قرص بلا جير كان لنا خادني قال دي عدمي لعغوية ستم لغو
كانت يغانتي كنت يغاني دياري كربوان جن يغان
Сейчас я в ней не могу учиться, потому что тут произошли военные действия.
من মানসিকলে খারাপ লাগে ক্যাম্পের মাঝে তারপর ইনকেও এর মা লাগে নয়তো মানে মানুষ বেশি আনলে মানুষের সামনে যেতে গিয়া লাগে খারাপ লাগে
With the coronavirus, it has spoiled everything. I find it hard to study at home.
ولی حق مسلمه که ما باید به دنبال علم و دانش بریم.
نمشي مسافة كبيرة نوصل يعني احنا نقل سادة يدرسوا نلقى احنا بنص الحصة.
In Corona, I've been using the radio. I listen to math lesson, science lessons, English.
نحن نسمي المدير يعني نقصد كادر نسائي. نحن متطوعات كلنا في مجال جامعات.
طاقنا أنا تمرتي لي كجم رجال دللقو
Both Global Girl Leading and the Obama Foundation are changing the narrative and are working to make a difference to the life of girls around the world. We would like to introduce you to another organization that is making global change.
Women of the World was founded by Jude Kelly in 2010 when the first WOW Festival took place at the South Bank Centre. Since then, WOW festivals celebrating women and girls and taking a frank look at the obstacles they face have taken place across the globe, reaching 5 million people to date. Through festivals, events, school programs and more, WOW challenges the belief that gender equity has already been achieved and hopes to join the dots between people, movements and ideas to change the world.
We now join Kathy Hunt, Executive Producer of WOW Australia.
My name is Kathy and I'm speaking to you today from Gubbi Gubbi country, which will be known to some of you as the Sunshine Coast in Australia. But I'm speaking to you on from the traditional lands of the Gubbi Gubbi people, and I'd like to pay my respects immediately to the traditional owners of these lands and to elders past, present and emerging. And that's very, very important for us in Australia and within the WOW Women of the World movement in Australia, because what we try and do always is to put first the voices of First Nations women first in all our conversations. So we work very closely with the Social Justice Commissioner in the Human Rights Commission, June Oscar, to ensure that the Women's Voices report that's been created in Australia over the past 12 months, is actually positioning the needs and the voices of First Nations women in everything that we do. So WOW in Australia, WOW, I don't know how many of you have heard of WOW and the WOW festivals and the Women of the World movement, but WOW's been in Australia now for nearly a decade, working very closely with the WOW Foundation in London. And we've been developing many different festivals, events and activities, first through the International WOW Festivals, but also through always having, apart from during COVID, a big International Day of the Girl celebration. And the WOW movement is something that anybody could join into. If you go to our website in Australia, wowaustralia.com.au, certainly for the Australian schools that are on this part of this wonderful event, and those schools that are elsewhere in our region, please connect in with us because you might be interested in joining us either in person or online for what we're doing, but I'll let you know about that later. It's very important to us to include celebrations for the International Day of the Girl in everything that we do, because it is your voices that are the future. You are the people for whom we do our work, really, and therefore it's really important that you have your say in shaping what we do, because we can talk about issues to do with gender equality from our perspective. We can talk about how we want to build a fairer, safer, and more gender just world from our perspective. But it is so important that young women and girls actually have your say in the way you want the world to be shaped and how we can help you in doing that. And that maybe has been a problem sometimes in the past, that has not happened in an intergenerational way. And the wonderful thing about the WOW movement and the wonderful thing about this really exciting project that's happening now, Global Girl Leading, I hope I've got the title right, is that it's placing your voices at the center, and it's an intergenerational approach to the inequalities we have.
You can find out more about WOW by visiting the WOW Foundation website.
In July and August 2023, the Women's Football World Cup took place, hosted by Australia and New Zealand. The final was between Spain and England, with Spain winning 1-0.
The tournament greatly increased the interest in women's football around the world. At our 2023 Global Girl Leading Conference, we linked up with girls from Star of the Sea College in Melbourne to discuss the impact of the tournament, as well as the levels of inequity which still exist in women's sport.
Following the interview, Vicky Treadell, British High Commissioner to Australia, shared how the tournament was used to inspire women and girls to use sport as a way of expressing themselves.
Following the respective successes of the Lionesses and the Matildas at the recent Women's Football World Cup, women's football has reached new levels of popularity in both Australia and the UK. And we have seen this reflected in the conversations around both teams. However, it is no secret that historically men's sport has had a much higher profile than women's sport. And we can see this from the fact that the winners of the Women's FA Cup in the UK received £100,000 in prize money. While this may seem like a lot, their male counterparts received £2 million. To celebrate International Day of the Girl, we would like to discuss the current state of women's sport, comparing both British and Australian perspectives. We'll be hearing first from Star of the Sea College about the popularity and impact of women's sports in Australia. This will then be followed by Zakia, who will give us a British insight into this. We will then be hearing about how we can reach equality in sport from Star of the Sea College and then from Maria, who will round off on this topic before Star of the Sea College conclude our conversation. We now cross over live to Star of the Sea College to hear what they have to say.
Good morning to those in the UK and good afternoon to those of us in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm Beth and this is Laura, and we are coming to you from Bunurong country. We would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we stand, the Bunurong people. We would like to pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We're both in Year 11 at Star of the Sea College in Melbourne. We are an all-girls Catholic college with a strong feminist culture. Today we're here to talk about the rise in popularity of female sports in Australia.
If you didn't know already, Australia is a sports-mad country. From our obsession with cricket, tennis, rugby, and of course our very own Australian rules football. However, it has only been in relatively recent years that women and girls have embraced active participation rather than just spectating.
Our school is a classic example. Built over 140 years ago, we have very few sporting fields and facilities, and definitely no ovals or pitches. This is because girls just didn't play sports in those days, or at least weren't encouraged to. Past star girls may have indulged in a little liturgical dancing, or at most a casual game of social tennis, but nothing to the scale of their male counterparts.
However, in recent years, our nation has witnessed an incredible transformation in the way we perceive and celebrate women in sport. Firstly, the evolution of the Women's Australian Football League, or AFLW, is a great example. Australian rules football, or footy for short, is our own game, which has been described as a mixture of rugby, soccer, and Gaelic football. This sport was first officially played in 1858 in our very own city of Melbourne. It soon evolved to become a nationwide sport known as AFL, but for most of its history, it's of course been preserved for men.
It has obviously been a long time since Australian footy was established, but our Women's League was only invented 6 years ago, in 2017. While the AFLW has faced many challenges and has had to battle hard for equal respect as an association, as seen in the lingering misogyny of this meme found on an AFL Facebook group last weekend, it has grown significantly since its inception and will hopefully continue to see a rise in popularity in the future.
A significant beacon of hope and pride for Australian women's sport in recent times has of course been our national football team, the Matildas, who have become a household name after playing so successfully in the Women's World Cup on our very shores.
The unprecedented support and enormous audience for this World Cup smashed long-held ideas of women not being able to pull the same size audience as a male football tournament, or soccer as we Aussies call it, and brought an incredible regeneration of interest in the game.
But the rise of female sports in Australia isn't limited to football. Women are excelling in a multitude of sports, making their presence felt across the sporting spectrum. Statistics paint a vivid picture of this impressive trend. According to a recent survey, approximately 41% of all sports participants in Australia are female. This is a substantial increase from just a few decades ago when women's sports were received limited recognition and funding.
Let's take a closer look at some of the sports that women in Australia excel in. Cricket, netball, rugby, basketball, and tennis are amongst them, and the success of our female athletes in these sports not only inspires young girls to pursue their sporting dreams, but also fosters a sense of national pride.
Similarly, in netball, the Australian Diamonds are a dominant force on the international stage, with a multitude of World Cup titles, including winning the Netball World Cup this year in Cape Town against England, unfortunately for those of you across the pond, Our women's rugby sevens team, the Australian Pearls, has received remarkable success in the Olympic arena. Their gold medal at the 2016 Rio Olympics was a historical moment that highlighted the potential for female athletes in this physically demanding sport. Fortunately for us, one of those members of that team, Elliot Green, was an ex-Star student as seen on screen.
The increasing popularity of women's sports in Australia is not just about winning titles and medals, it's about breaking down barriers and challenging stereotypes. These achievements send a powerful message to young girls across our country and indeed the world, that they can pursue their dreams, excel in sports, and be role models for future generations. Thank you for listening from Star.
All throughout history, women's sports have been overlooked and underappreciated, and it's important to continue changing that and to bring the appreciation and recognition that sportsmen receive to professional sportswomen. Female sports players have said that in order to get the same recognition and attention that men get while doing something average, they have to achieve an extraordinary goal or score. And research shows that the 2018 Men's World Cup pulled in a huge 3.572 billion viewers. However, the figure for the 2019 Women's World Cup was 31% of that number. Fortunately, the popularity of women's football has been increasing, especially due to the Women's World Cup this year. In an article titled "England's Women Changed the Game" by The Guardian, it says that viewing figures for women's football have been steadily increasing and that they have doubled since 2017. This is a really significant change, and I think it has a really important impact on women and young girls who have a passion for sport. Women are easily discouraged for playing certain sports that are stereotypically for boys and men, and are almost made to believe that they're naturally bad at these sports just because they're a girl. However, this change will inspire and empower many young girls and even grown women in sports, as it shows them that they can be fully confident that they are capable of succeeding and excelling at the sports from seeing the success of women's sports in the media. It is exciting to think how this growth of popularity will develop over the next few years, as teams like the Lionesses and Matildas have already made such an impact to so many. Now, to talk about equality in sport, we're going to go back to the Star of the Sea College. Over to you.
Our names are Elizabeth and Eleanor, and we are currently in Year 9.
Whilst we speak from Australia, inequality and the gender gap in sport transcends borders and impacts societies around the world. The challenges we face in our country are mirrored in many parts of the globe, making it a global issue that needs our collective attention and action.
Sport is often celebrated as a universal language, a source of joy, and a platform for unity. However, we can't ignore the disparities that persist between men and women, from pay gaps to unequal opportunities. And they persist despite the remarkable progress made in recent years.
This is most evident in the stark difference in pay between male and female athletes. In many sports, male athletes earn significantly more than females. For instance, in tennis, despite both men and women competing at the same Grand Slam tournaments, female players often receive less prize money than the males. Women athletes are still largely underpaid compared to their male counterparts, often having to take out second jobs in order to make ends meet. This pay gap sends a message that the achievement of female athletes are somehow worth less than those of male athletes.
Then there is the limited media coverage and sponsorship opportunities available to female athletes. The lack of visibility affects not only their earning potential, but also their ability to inspire future generations. And in Australia, less than 9% of media coverage is on women's games. When young girls don't see female athletes being celebrated in the media, they may not be encouraged to pursue sports as a viable career or hobby.
Women often face unequal access to facilities, coaching, and resources compared to men. This starts at grassroots level, where girls may not have the same opportunities as boys to engage in sports and receive proper training and support. These early disadvantages can have long-lasting impact on their athletic development and future opportunities in sports. Furthermore, female high-performance coaches
represent less than 15% of coaches across Australia in the high performance system.
There are also restrictive gender stereotypes where women are seen to be less powerful or strong, that all women who play sport are butch, or a belief that women do not belong in sport.
This inequality is not just about athletes themselves. It also extends to the leadership and decision-making roles within sports organisations. Women are underrepresented in coaching, refereeing, and administrative positions, which limits their influence and ability to advocate for gender equity within sports institutions. In Australia, 1 in 3 board members in sport are women.
To illustrate this, we can use an example of soccer, or as you like to call it in the UK, football. Men's and women's soccer in Australia offers a stark illustration of gender inequality. Despite the remarkable achievements of the Matildas, the Australian women's national soccer team, and the growing popularity of women's soccer, a significant gap exists in all these facets. At least the Lionesses had a female coach.
It is, however, important to acknowledge the progress is being made. In Australia, initiatives like the Women in Sport Task Force and the Female Friendly Facilities Fund aim to address some of these disparities. Internationally, movements like the Equal Play and the Change the Game has brought attention to gender inequality in sports and pushed for change.
The gender gap in sports is a global challenge that requires collective action. While we've made strides towards gender equality in sports, there is much work to be done, and it starts with all of us. Thanks for listening. From Star.
My name is Maria, and today I will be discussing how I believe equality can be reached in sports. Within this section, I will discuss representation of female athletes in the media alongside national statistics of women partaking in sport-related qualifications and where this gender gap may stem from. Sports Centre is an Instagram account in which all sorts of sport-related content is posted to an audience of over 37 million people. However, during the first couple months of this year, only 3.7% of all the posts made were dedicated to women. With less representation, there creates a scarce amount of role models for aspiring girl athletes to look up to. Not only that, but a lack in promotion of female athletes creates a lack of viewership. With less people watching women's sports, it creates a huge group of people to be blindsided to women's capabilities. It is imperative that women's achievements are showcased and presented with the same amount of attention given to their male co-workers as a step closer to reaching equality in sport. The General Certification of Secondary Education, or more commonly known as GCSEs, are exams 15 to 16-year-olds take in the UK after 5 years at secondary school. Statistically, participation rates of men are significantly higher than women in sport-related subjects. Out of everyone who took physical education at GCSE level this year, only 43% were female and 57% were male. It comes as no shock as in the UK, 1.9 million fewer women than men take part in sport each week. There is an eye-opening drop in girls' participation rates from age 11. By age 14, boys are twice as active as girls. There are many reasons why some women rarely participate in sport or physical activity, such as low self-esteem, lack of encouragement, friends/peer inactivity. Others do not participate, so it devalues theirs. These issues and many more must be addressed so that girls can feel comfortable, welcome, and have their contribution valued to further close the gender gap between men and women in sports. Gender stereotyping is a process in which children's biological sex determines the activity they engage in and not engage in, as well as the manner in which they are treated in these activities. Sports are generally considered a masculine domain, and this stereotype results in boys perceiving greater ability and achieving greater importance to sport than girls. This contributes to the gender differences observed in sport. An example of the youth are often pressured into gender-appropriate sports. If someone tells you that they have a child playing ice hockey and another doing figure skating, what assumption do you typically make about these kids? The gendered assumption would be that a boy plays ice hockey and a girl figure skates. Kids do gender type sports as more or less appropriate. As another example is gymnastics for girls because they're flexible and it's a girls' sport, and football for boys because it is rough with lots of contact. After these traditional beliefs are finally disregarded and every sport is welcoming to the idea of women playing, will gender equality be reached in sports? Thank you for your time today. Now to finish our conversation, we hand back over to the Star of the Sea College.
My name is Amy and I'm currently in Year 11. So what can we do to bridge this gender gap in sports? Regardless of which side of the equator we live on, it must start with awareness and advocacy. We must recognise that gender equality is not just a women's issue, it's a societal issue. We need to challenge stereotypes and biases that perpetuate inequality and advocate for equal opportunities, equal pay, and equal representation in sports. Supporting female athletes and women's sports is crucial. Attend games, watch broadcasts, and buy merchandise to demonstrate that there is a demand for women's sports. Encourage young girls to participate in sports and provide them with the same level of encouragement and resources as boys. Additionally, we need to hold sport organisations accountable. They must take proactive steps to promote gender equality, from implementing fair pay structures to increasing opportunities for women in leadership positions. Perhaps most notably, we hold the power to effect change. Women constitute half of the world's population. Picture the transformation possible if each woman rallied behind her fellow woman, not only in sports, but also in schools, workplaces, and every corner of society. Furthermore, when joined by male allies, gender inequality could disappear overnight. As our school motto says, facta non verba, deeds not words. Thank you and farewell from Style.
And I can't think of a better way to wrap this up.
Well done to speakers from both schools. It's been a fascinating discussion. I hope everyone watching, no matter what country they're from, has learned a lot from all of you. We're now going back to Vicky Chadell, who wanted to share some thoughts about the recent Women's Football World Cup in Australia.
So I understand that some of you will be talking to Mulberry schoolgirls in the UK about sport and how sport can be empowering. One of the most exciting things that I have experienced in my time here in Australia was the FIFA Women's World Cup. And we used it as a way to inspire women and girls. We did a series of events. One particular delegation we brought in from the Pacific included young women in their late teens, actually, so who came and participated at a Lionesses training camp. We took them to Sydney. They watched the match between the Lionesses and Denmark, and it was really, really exciting. But this is the thing. For these young women who came from the Pacific and also from the English players, the Lionesses, sport was a means to express themselves. Sports was a means to have a career and a profession. But sport too as a way to empower, as a backdrop for actually seeing women who are strong, who are good at teamwork, who are individually gifted and are stars. And of course, the great game. I'm sorry to Australian participants in the program today. When I went to watch the semi-final match again between the Matildas and the Lionesses, it was sad for me because I knew that I would have loved that to have been the final. But to see these two magnificent teams with fantastic captains leading their teams. And of course, the two captains, the Lionesses and the Matildas, are teammates in Chelsea Women's Football Club in the UK, where they actually play together in the same team, but found that they had to compete against each other. And competition, of course, in itself brings out the best in us, a way to stretch and see whether we can be better. But in winning, the thing that I thought was the most wonderful in watching the women's football matches, there was such grace in defeat, there was such grace in victory, that you may win a particular race, you may win a particular game, but to remember that there are others that you need to also encourage and think about. So competition is great, but I think the thing that I saw most was that in the Women's World Cup, there was huge kindness and understanding that whilst we're competitors after the game, we can be friends and we can lift each other.
Vicky's inspiring words about the power of sports to bring a community together truly resonate with us.
In 2018, a creative writing project was launched inspired by the book of Thee I Sing, A Letter to My Daughters written by Barack Obama.
Young people were invited to write a letter to a future daughter offering advice, guidance and hope. Students worked with lawyer and poet Dave Nita to craft their poems, and 5 were selected to be performed live at our Partnership of Equals conference.
We join Dave as he presents 3 of his own poems, followed by the 5 student performances.
So what I'm going to do is share 3 poems, and then we're going to get into the students' poems. The first poem is called Only Mother. I know we all say we love our mother, but sometimes we neglect her. And this poem is dedicated to the mother that we all share. Only Mother. Not to worry. It's only mother. Use fuel like it's free. Not to worry. It's only mother. More plastic in the sea. Not to worry. It's only mother. Continue to deplete the ozone. After all, whose world is it? It is ours to dominate and to own. Not to worry. It's only mother. Ignore the melting polar ice cap. Ignore your fears. Forget your cares. The polar bears need no habitat. Not to worry. It's only mother. Just get rid of the Paris Agreement. Promote dirty factories with no regulation and a great deal of appeasement. Not to worry. It's only mother. Endangered species do not matter. Not to worry. It's only mother. The trees are better off as paper. Not to worry. It's only mother. There's absolutely no need to recycle. Mix all your waste, drive a gas guzzler, and forget about that bicycle. Not to worry, it's only mother. Don't reduce or reuse. Enlightenment and responsibility. You have a right to refuse. Not to worry, it's only mother. She's not looking all the time. Not to worry, it's only mother. She's getting old and weary, but she's doing just fine. Not to worry, it's only mother. No need for veneration. Posterity is a fallacy. We're the very last generation. Not to worry. It's only mother. Let's consume all her resources. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll not stop our greedy forces. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll never leave us alone. Not to worry. It's only mother. Her duty is to serve us as we sack her sacred throne. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll never leave or forsake us. She'll never just let us be. Not to worry. It's only mother. Use her fuel like it's free. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll always care. She'll always be there. Mother, mom, mama, not to worry. She's still there. She must be here somewhere. Thank you. Why read? There are those who have and those who need. There are those who follow and those who lead. The common thread that runs through those who lead, no matter what their race, gender, religion, or creed, they all cultivate a healthy greed to read. So let us choose to lead, and on words let us feed, and let us also write for others to read. Let us also write for others to read. Agreed? I hope you agree. And, by the way, that's what you all did. You all showed up, and with the reading that you have done and the information you've gathered, you've written. And now an anthology has been produced, and the world can now read. Important, not just to hear, but to write, to read. I'm going to close with stand up. You're not required to stand. I know you're standing in your heart already. It's an attitude. You can do it, so don't give up. Don't sleep away your dreams. You must wake up. Speak out your ambitions. Do not shut up. Your feelings and ideas, do not lock up. Express yourself. You must get up. And when you're learning in class, it's best to sit up in this race called life. You must keep up. And for your principles and rights, you must stand up. So arise, young people, arise. Full time, you realize that the best in life you can achieve, so don't ever compromise. Awake, young students, open your eyes. No more listening to negative lies. Keep a positive vision alive. You are uniquely created, this is true, each of you. And no one else can carry through that special mission you were put here on earth to do. So step up and claim your great destiny. Embrace it with your soul and all your energy, because this great destiny rightfully belongs to you, to each of you, to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, for such a fantastic performance. We will now have some performances by the brilliant winners of our poetry competition. Our performers are
Isra performing on behalf of Faiza from Mulberry School for Girls,
Freya from Wickham High School,
Mariam from Mulberry School for Girls,
Abby from Wickham High School,
and Saeed from Mulberry UTC.
Please welcome our poets to the stage.
Nothing. He sits, curled up, quietly sobbing in the corner, afraid of the possibility that someone will walk in on him. He wonders, how long will he be able to live like this, and questions his purpose in life. An 11-year-old boy contemplating suicide without even knowing what it is. He holds himself up and walks to the bathroom. His eyes crimson, his cheeks soaked. The boy splashes his face with cold water, attempting to hide his hurt. He fidgets with a heavy heart, and when his sister asks what is wrong, he replies, lying, nothing, straining the corners of his mouth into a beautifully choreographed smile to hide his injured soul.
Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry, not because they don't want to, but because society says so. Girls can't yell, because it's unladylike. Even if they want to, they will hold it back as they scream inside their minds and pray for silence. Boys won't cry. Boys won't cry because it makes them weak. To show emotion makes them lesser, and they get told to be a man. But a girl can cry a river, as long as she's not heard. But we have the right to cry and scream. We have the right to show our fear, our anger, passions, and tears. Because emotion isn't weak, and the strongest thing to do is wear our hearts upon our sleeves, because boys can cry, and girls can scream. When society says to dry your eyes, let the tears keep flowing. When they say keep quiet, shout until your voice is heard. Because if we don't fight the stigma, they will never hear a word. Stay strong. Hold on. We'll win this fight. We are all human beings. Emotion is our right.
Real. The clock reads 1 minute to 12 as her child yells. Cars pass by, tires humming along to the city music. Dull murmurs carry themselves through the wall, wrapping around her like a comforting hug. Her eyes fall on the child in her arms, a smile lingering on her lips. She watches as he begins to settle. She watches as a final tear falls onto his delicate cheek. And she wonders how many tears he will shed silently because real men don't cry. She wonders how many times his kindness will be confused for weakness because real men are tough. She wonders how many times her son will be told to man up. She places him beside his sister as she stirs gently in her sleep. And she wonders how many times she will feel uncomfortable in her own skin because real women have perfect features. She wonders how many times she will be told to stop being dramatic because real women are emotional. She wonders how long it will be before her daughter feels insecure about herself. She gazes at her children sleeping silently. Distant sounds echo around them like a melody. She knows she will raise her son to not be part of the real men, but as a real man. She knows she will raise her daughter to not be part of the real woman, but as a real woman. And she knows she will raise her children, the people of the future, as equals. Lights blink through the window, casting shadows against the walls. Voices carry themselves through the wall, flowing from ear to ear. Night lies still above the ground as change is beginning. A mother whispers goodnight to her 2 sleeping children, and the clock reads 12. A new day has come.
A smattering of clouds like smoke float over the pale sky, gently swaying trees of oak, and a vibrant sun shines up high. The shopping bag weighs down her arm, cutting into her tightly balled fist. The sunny day is working its charm, and she's bought everything on her shopping list. She finds the walk home delightful. The distance from the shops to her house isn't far. She doesn't expect anything frightful, so she's completely surprised by the car. It rolls up beside her, and she can do nothing when a man shouts, "Nice tits, love." So she just grips her shopping bag tighter and keeps on walking.
A world worth the while. There could be freedom for us all to do what we love. There could be a life worth living if we never give it up. There could be beauty in the struggle if we open our eyes. There could be a world full of truth if we never believe the lies. Our women should be praised for the courage they have shown. Our women should be held up high because of how much they have grown. Our women should be mechanics and doctors if that is what they aspire to be. Our women should be able to live in a world full of freedom and joy, and that is a world that we should be happy to see. A world full of hopes and dreams for our future women is what we should be fighting for. A world where our future is full of educated women, no matter how rich or how poor. A world that is not blind to the strength of a woman that has a heart of a lioness with no show of fear. A world that is not deaf to the voices of the women with passion, which they never want to hear. We are no longer locked up in the shadows, so here comes the light. We are no longer afraid to stand up for what we believe is right. We are no longer living in misery, so you can watch us smile. We are standing together as one for all and all for one, so we can make a world worth the while. Thank you.
In celebration of the 2024 conference, a second Letters to Our Daughters project was launched, and this time young girls from around the world were invited to take part.
We received hundreds of entries, and a selection of them will be published in an anthology which will be available to download shortly. 5 of them have been selected to be performed live at the conference, and you will be able to watch them later.
We also invited friend of Mulberry, actor Jade Anuka, to write a letter to her daughter.
Daughter, know you are so loved. Know you are the light that shone so bright after months of heartache. You are the joy. Boy, you are the joy. Daughter, know you were so wanted. Know you were the start of something that would become our family. A family unlike one I had ever known. A family that will not judge you. A family built on respect and acceptance and encouragement and faith. Faith in you, your faith in us. Daughter, know you are celebrated. Know we exult in your creation, a miracle, an extraordinary feat of scientific genius, an act of love. Daughter, know that we love you. Know we always will. Your mama and I always will believe in you, want you to do you, want to never control you, always uphold you, to believe in you. Believe that you are unlike any other. You are our daughter. We, your biggest supporters, ready to cheerlead every time you try. Every time you do the best you can do that day. Every time you say, I love you, we will believe you too. Daughter, we want you to be happy. No, it's impossible, you always will. But we, your parents, always will, no matter how you're feeling, offer 2 arms for a hug or an ear. We will be there. Daughter, I hope you grow to love you as much as we already do. I hope you celebrate yourself and not rely on others to fill you to the top with love. I hope you grow to know you were the start of our family's beautiful beginning. Because whatever you do, whoever you become, you will always be our daughter and you will always be loved.
We are grateful to Jade for sharing this really moving piece about her own family.
That has brought us to the end of our look back over the past few years of Global Girl Leading and a preview of this year's exciting conference.
The 2024 conference will take place on Friday, 11th of October, starting at 10 a.m. UK time. If you are unable to watch the conference live, it will be available to stream afterwards on the Mulberry Schools Trust YouTube channel.
The arts have the power to affect change. We would like to leave you with the story of little Amal, a giant puppet of a 10-year-old Syrian refugee seeking her mother. Since July 2021, Amal has travelled to 166 towns and cities in 17 countries and been welcomed by 2 million people on the street and by tens of millions online. Whilst travelling the world, she has raised money for refugees and displaced children, as well as wider awareness.
Thank you for watching.